My name is Selena Ward, and there was a time not long ago when I truly believed I had created a safe, quiet life for myself. I'm 36 now, but back then I was 34, a high school English teacher in Atlanta with a neat little routine, a warm little home, and a husband who made everyone say, "You found a good one," and I believed them. Dorian Pike was polished, gentle-voiced, and endlessly attentive, the kind of man who made you feel chosen. He worked from home as a cybersecurity analyst, which meant he was always present listening for my car in the driveway, greeting me with a meal or a hug, asking about my students like he genuinely cared about each one. Every night, just before bed, he'd hand me what he called my wellness essentials, a glass of water and 2 capsules. Supplements, he said, a special blend to support my energy and immune system. "You give so much to those kids," he'd whisper, brushing hair behind my ear. "Let me give something back to you." And I let him, because why wouldn't I trust a man who held me so gently? Looking back, that question haunts me more than anything else. The first warning sign was subtle, a forgotten conversation here, a misplaced memory there. I'd find myself losing track of lessons mid-sentence, drifting mentally, feeling like someone had pressed a dimmer switch on my brain. I blamed stress. I blamed overwork. I blamed myself. Teachers are used to exhaustion. We swallow it like air. But the exhaustion became something deeper, heavier, the kind of fog that made time slip and blur together. Sometimes I woke up wearing clothes I didn't remember putting on. Once, I went to bed in shorts and a tank top and woke up in a long nightdress folded neatly around me. When I mentioned it, Dorian chuckled, kissed my forehead, and said, "You changed in your sleep. You were half awake, baby. You just don't remember." He said it like he was amused, like I was adorable. I believed him. At the time, I believed everything. But my best friend, Kendra Miles, saw through me. She always did. One afternoon, she pulled me aside and said, "Selena, you look spaced out, like you're here, but you're not here. Are you okay?" And for the first time, something inside me cracked. I wasn't okay. I just didn't know why. The night everything shifted. Everything inside me screamed that something was wrong. The capsules tasted slightly off bitter, faster dissolving. Within minutes, that familiar heaviness tried to drag me under. Except this time, I forced myself to fight it. I lay still, breathing slow, pretending to drift off. And when Dorian crept back into the bedroom to check whether I was unconscious, my blood ran cold, because the way he hovered over me was not the way a husband watches his wife sleep. But the real nightmare didn't start until the next night, when I pretended to sleep again and heard Dorian whisper something through the door that changed everything I thought I knew. The next night arrived with a tension so thick it felt like the walls were holding their breath. I moved through the evening like a ghost in my own home, careful, quiet, pretending nothing had changed. I cooked dinner. I laughed at Dorian's jokes. I asked him about work. I acted like the woman he expected me to be. Meanwhile, inside, every instinct I had was clawing at me, whispering, "Stay awake, stay alert, stay alert." At 10:30 p.m., right on schedule, Dorian walked into the bedroom carrying the 2 capsules and a glass of water. "Almost forgot," he said with a soft smile. "One so rehearsed it felt like a mask." I smiled back. "Thank you." But this time, when I placed the capsules on my tongue, I slid them expertly into my cheek the moment he looked away. I held my breath as he watched me swallow, waiting for him to demand proof the way he sometimes did. But he didn't. He just leaned down, brushed his lips against my forehead, and whispered, "Rest well, Selena, rest well," as if he needed me asleep, not just resting. Minutes later, the familiar heaviness tried to settle in my limbs. A psychological residue, maybe, but I forced myself to fight it. I pinched my thigh under the covers to stay focused. I counted backward from 300. I dug my nails into my palms until my skin stung. Anything to keep myself anchored. Around 11:40, I heard the soft click of our bedroom door opening. I kept my breathing deep and even. Dorian stepped inside, his movements deliberate and too quiet. Through the smallest sliver of my half-lowered eyelids, I saw his silhouette standing over me again, watching, checking. He waited almost a full minute. Then he flipped out. My heartbeat felt like thunder in my ears, but I didn't move. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Then I heard it, the sound of the basement door opening. Our basement was basically a storage space we barely used. Dorian had never needed anything from there at midnight, ever. And the moment I heard footsteps descending the stairs, something inside me snapped into clarity. I needed to know what he was doing down there. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could. My legs trembled from the adrenaline, but I made it to the top of the stairs. The house was dark, so dark I could hear my own pulse. I pressed my ear to the basement door. There were voices, plural. Dorian's and another man's, deep, rough, hidden. Same time next week, the stranger said. She won't wake up, Dorian replied confidently. She never does. I nearly dropped to my knees. My husband wasn't just drugging me. He wasn't acting alone. And whatever they were doing, they expected me unconscious. My breath hitched, and I clamped a hand over my mouth so I wouldn't make a sound. I felt like I was listening to my own life unravel one sentence at a time, but the worst part wasn't what I heard at the basement door. It was what I later saw with my own eyes when I realized I needed real proof and decided to start recording everything. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed pretending to be unconscious long after Dorian returned upstairs. I felt a mattress dip when he checked on me one more time, felt his hand brush my hair back like he was admiring something he believed he owned. I kept my body still, my breathing slow, even though inside I felt like I was screaming. When the sun finally rose, everything felt surreal. Dorian handed me my morning coffee with the same gentle smile he always wore, as if he hadn't spent the night whispering to another man in our basement about keeping me out. As if he wasn't slowly erasing me piece by piece. Sleep okay? He asked. Yeah, I lied. Like a rock. He kissed the top of my head. I fought the urge to recoil. The moment he went to shower, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared into the mirror. My own reflection looked foreign pale, shaken, eyes shadowed with fear and disbelief. How long had I been living with a stranger? How long had he been drugging me? Using me, letting others near me? I didn't know. And the worst part was, I couldn't trust my own memories enough to even guess. But I knew one thing. If I confronted Dorian now, without proof, I'd lose. He'd twist it. He'd gaslight me. He'd convince police I was unstable or paranoid from stress. Men like him were experts at manipulation. And I needed evidence. Real evidence. The idea terrified me, but I knew it was the only way I'd ever be believed. That afternoon at school, I taught my classes mechanically, barely hearing my own voice. During lunch, I sat in my empty classroom fighting back tears. Then I did something I never imagined I'd have to do. I drove to an electronics store, hands shaking on the steering wheel. I walked inside and bought 2 small hidden cameras, one shaped like a charger block, one disguised as a motion sensor. I paid cash. I didn't want anything traced back. Back home, I waited until Dorian left for his daily evening run. The second the door closed, I sprinted into action. The first camera went into the bedroom, tucked neatly among the books on my nightstand shelf, angled directly at the spot where Dorian always placed the pills and always leaned over me. Then I moved to the basement. Going down those stairs felt like walking into a nightmare while fully awake. Memories of the muffled voices echoed in my head. The basement smelled like dust and old storage boxes, but something about it felt wrong, violated, lived in at night when I wasn't conscious. I found a vent near the far wall, used a screwdriver from Dorian's toolbox, and wedged the second camera inside. It had a full view of the entry point and half the room. Good enough, more than enough. I was placing the vent cover back when I heard the front door unlock. I raced upstairs and sat on the couch, pretending to grade student essays, heart hammering so loud I was sure he'd hear it. "Hey, babe," Dorian said cheerfully. "Miss me?" I smiled. "Every second." Inside, I felt sick, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what the cameras captured the first night they recorded, or for what I discovered about Dorian's real intentions. That night, Every second felt like it was stretched across a wire pulled tight. My heartbeat was too loud, my breathing too sharp, yet I forced myself to play the part. When Dorian brought me the capsules, I accepted them calmly, pretended to swallow them, and even thanked him for taking care of me. He smiled, pleased, almost proud of himself, like he was nurturing me instead of slowly drugging me into oblivion. I spit the pills into a tissue the moment he turned his back. Then came the waiting, the pretending, the terrifying effort of keeping my eyelids heavy while keeping my mind alert. I lay still, heart racing beneath the covers, while that familiar psychological heaviness tugged at my body. Months of conditioning were hard to fight, but I forced myself to stay awake. At 12:08 a.m., the bedroom door opened. Dorian stepped inside, moving quietly, confidently. He leaned over me, watching my face closely, searching for any sign of consciousness. I kept my breathing slow and steady. My fingers twitched slightly from fear, but thankfully he didn't notice. After a few seconds, he straightened, whispered, "Perfect," and slipped out of the room. I waited until his footsteps faded. Then I reached under the pillow, grabbed my phone, and opened the live feed of the bedroom camera. It was working, the basement one too. I watched as Dorian walked into the hallway and headed downstairs. My stomach twisted. The camera in the vent caught him entering the basement, flipping on a dim light, and then my breath froze, pulling out a tripod from behind a stack of storage boxes. A tripod. For what? He set it up like he'd done it hundreds of times. A few minutes later, he opened the basement door again, and another man stepped inside. I recognized the voice from the night before, low, rough, casual, like he'd been here before. Dorian handed him something. Money? Cash? I couldn't see clearly, but the man nodded, grinning. Then Dorian held up his phone and showed the man something on the screen. The stranger's expression changed, hungry, eager, vile. My stomach twisted so violently I had to cover my mouth. I prayed it wasn't images of me. I prayed I was wrong. I prayed for anything else. But I already knew. I watched in horror as the two men talked quietly, gesturing upstairs, gesturing toward me, while exchanging something else between them. They weren't just filming. They weren't just watching. They were planning. My husband was coordinating something with this stranger, something that required me unconscious, drugged, silent, and unaware. When the man finally left, Dorian stayed downstairs another 15 minutes, adjusting things, checking something on the laptop he kept on a folding table. Files. Footage. I didn't want to imagine what was on that screen. At 20:31 a.m., he came upstairs again to check if I was still knocked out. I lay perfectly still while he hovered over me, brushing a strand of hair from my face like I was some lifeless doll. I wanted to scream, but I had to wait. I needed more proof. And I wasn't done recording. The next 3 nights revealed the truth piece by horrifying piece. But what I found on the 4th morning nearly destroyed me because it proved Dorian had been doing this to me far longer than I ever imagined. For the next 3 nights, I repeated the same routine. Pretend to swallow the capsules, pretend to sleep, fight the heaviness that lingered like a shadow over my mind. Each night, Dorian followed the same pattern, as predictable as clockwork. The check-in, the whisper of approval when he believed I was unconscious, the creeping footsteps down the hallway, and finally the descent into the basement. And each time, the basement camera caught everything: the tripod, the laptop, the exchange of money, the arrival of different men, not one man, multiple, different nights, different faces. Each one greeted Dorian like a business partner, not a stranger. My skin crawled every time I watched them step into the basement, every time I saw Dorian's calm, almost professional demeanor as he handled cash or cryptocurrency codes scribbled on pieces of paper. He had a whole system, a whole operation. And each night I grew sicker, not from drugs, but from the truth unraveling before me. By the 4th night, I couldn't keep going without seeing exactly how long this had been happening. Something inside me insisted the timeline went deeper than the last few months. I had gaps in my memory long before I noticed anything was wrong, gaps I dismissed as burnout, overwork, exhaustion. I needed to know. So the next morning, after Dorian casually announced he was going out for errands, I waited until his car backed out of the driveway. Then I grabbed my laptop and logged into the hidden cloud account where the camera footage uploaded. Not just the last 3 nights, all the footage, every session, every date, every timestamp. I clicked the earliest file, and my breath left my lungs. The first recording wasn't from a month ago, not 2 months, not even 3. It was from 7 months earlier. 7. I sat frozen as I watched the video. Dorian placing the pills on my nightstand, back when I thought they were harmless vitamins, back when I still trusted him with my whole stupid heart. He drugged me back then, months before I even noticed the fog in my mind. But the horror didn't stop there. As I clicked through the older files, I found footage of him changing my clothes while I was unconscious, lifting my limp arms, adjusting me like I was nothing more than dead weight, brushing hair out of my face with a kind of detached tenderness that made my stomach twist. Then there were the images, hundreds of them, stored neatly in folders, labeled by dates, labeled by names of men, labeled with titles that made bile rise in my throat. Some were photos of me asleep in bed. Some were angles I couldn't have imagined myself imposed, arranged, humiliated. He had been documenting me like a product he was selling. My hands trembled violently as I scrolled. Tears blurred my vision. My breath came in harsh, shallow bursts. I slammed the laptop shut and scrambled to the sink, where I vomited until nothing but acid remained. How could the man who once made me tea when I had a cold be the same man who sold my unconscious body to strangers? How could the person I married be the one who violated me most deeply? But as horrifying as the photos and videos were, nothing compared to what I found next. The locked folder on Dorian's hard drive labeled simply, Premium Client. My hands were still shaking when I reopened the laptop. I didn't want to look anymore. God, I didn't want to. But something darker inside me whispered that I had to. I needed to understand the full scale of what Dorian had been doing to me. I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. When I returned to the main directory, a folder caught my eye. I hadn't noticed it earlier. Premium Clients. The name alone made my stomach twist. I hesitated, staring at it for a long moment. The house felt too quiet, too still, like the walls were watching with me. Sweat gathered in my palms as I double-clicked the folder. Inside were dozens of subfolders named with numbers, not words, 001, 002, 003, and so on. Numbers, not names, not faces, numbers, like a catalog. Each folder contained chat logs, payment transfers, screenshots, notes written by Dorian, notes about me. I clicked one at random. Client 014. A message thread opened. Dorian had been negotiating pricing, timing, specific requests. My breath hitched when I saw phrases like, she won't wake up, no memory at all, doses are controlled, photos delivered after each sessions. He used that word, like I was a service, a schedule, a business. Some clients bought access to images, some bought videos, some, my vision blurred, paid extra to be in the house while I was unconscious. He had been selling access to my life, my privacy, my helplessness. I felt something inside me fracture. A sharp, cold anger carved itself into my chest, cutting through the horror and the fear. Dorian hadn't just betrayed me. He had stolen who I was. He had turned my body into a transaction, a commodity. Tears streamed down my face, but I kept scrolling. I needed answers. At the bottom of the folder was a spreadsheet, client list, dates, payments totaling tens of thousands, footage logs, and beside each entry was a column labeled status. Some were marked active, some were marked completed, some, my blood turned cold, were marked repeat. These men had come back, paid again, visited again, watched again, maybe worse. I threw a hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Every part of me shook, but I forced myself to keep looking until something changed, until, suddenly, a knock at the front door shattered the silence. I froze. No one knocked on our door in the middle of the day. Dorian was out. My friends were at work. My neighbors rarely visited. The knock came again, harder, more purposeful. Fear surged up my spine. I gently closed the laptop, wiped my face, and tiptoed toward the window beside the door. I expected a package delivery, or maybe a neighbor. It wasn't either. Standing on my porch was a man I had never seen before, one of the same men from the footage, his face etched permanently into my nightmares now. He was looking directly at the door, directly at me, as if he knew I was home. And then he lifted his hand and slid something under my door that made my blood run ice cold. I stood frozen as the stranger bent down and slid something through the gap beneath my front door. For a moment neither of us moved, me on one side of the wood, him standing too casually on the other. The air felt thick, heavy, suffocating. I could feel his presence like a stain. My first instinct was to run. My second was to scream, but my body wouldn't move. Finally, he straightened up. He lingered for a moment too long, then walked away without knocking again. I waited until I could no longer hear his footsteps before I finally exhaled. I looked down. It was a small note, folded twice, plain white paper. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The handwriting was messy, rushed, and jagged across the page. Do you know what he's been doing? You're not safe. He lied to all of us. All of us? I stared at the words, confused, terrified, and sick all at once. I didn't understand. Lied to them? About what? About me? About the situation? About the drugs? What lies could Dorian possibly tell these men, these predators, to make them think they were victims too? The idea made my head spin. I backed away from the door, clutching the note, and immediately called the only person I trusted enough to tell anything. Kendra. She answered on the first ring. Selena? You okay? You sound weird. I swallowed hard. Can you come over? Please? The panic in my voice told her everything she needed. I'm leaving my office right now. Don't open the door for anyone. Trust me, I whispered, shaking. I won't. While I waited for her, I locked every window, bolted every door, and checked the front porch from different angles through the blinds. Nothing. The man was gone. But the feeling he left behind lingered, like someone had scraped their fingers across my soul. When Kendra arrived, she came in fast, her worry turning into shock as she looked at me. Selena, you look like you've seen a ghost. I think one just came to my house, I breathed, handing her the note. She read it, her face tightening. This is bad, really bad. I know, I whispered. Do you think Dorian sent him? No, I don't think Dorian wants me talking to anyone. And this handwriting, it feels desperate. I paused. Kendra, what if one of the men didn't know? What if Dorian told them something entirely different? Something to justify what they were paying for? Kendra's expression darkened. Even if he lied to them, they still showed up to watch you unconscious. It doesn't matter what he told them. She was right, but the note wasn't about absolution. It was a warning. Kendra took charge like she always did in a crisis. Selena, you need to leave this house. Today. You can't stay here another night, not with men showing up to your door. She didn't need to convince me. Every inch of this place felt poisoned. I packed a bag, documents, clothes, the USB drive with some of the footage, and followed Kendra out. As we drove away, I watched my house disappear in the rearview mirror. It felt like watching a coffin close. But the moment we reached Kendra's house, another message came in, this one from someone I never expected, and it changed everything about my next move. Kendra's house felt like a safe haven the moment I stepped inside. Warm lighting, soft blankets, the scent of lavender she always kept in her living room. But safety was an illusion, and mine shattered within minutes. I had barely set my overnight bag down when my phone buzzed on my coffee table. A number I didn't recognize. No name, no message preview, just a single vibration that made my entire body tense. Kendra froze too. Is that him? I don't know. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I hesitated for several seconds before swiping open the notification. A voicemail, just one. I pressed play. A familiar voice filled the room. Smooth, calm, controlled. Dorian, Selena, he began, sounding exasperatingly normal. I came home and you're gone. I'm worried. Please call me back. My stomach twisted. Call him back? After everything? After months of being drugged? After secret recordings of men entering my home while I was unconscious? But the message didn't end there. I know things have been off lately, he continued. If you're feeling overwhelmed or confused, we can get help together. Just come home. You're not thinking clearly. Kendra's face hardened. He's trying to gaslight you before you even speak, she muttered. I clenched the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Then Dorian's tone shifted, barely perceptible, but chillingly real. Come back before you do something you'll regret. I felt the blood drain from my face. The voicemail ended. My hand shook violently. Kendra, he knows I'm gone. He probably came home and saw your things missing. Then she gently took the phone from me. Selena, this isn't about missing items. That message was a threat wrapped in concern. She was right. He wasn't worried. He was warning me. I sank onto the couch, trembling. Kendra, how do I even start explaining this to anyone? What if no one believes me? Kendra sat beside me and gripped my hands firmly. You have recordings, evidence. You are not going back there. And you are not dealing with this alone. She said it with the certainty I no longer had. Then she took a deep breath. We're calling the police. Now. My heart lurched. Part of me wanted to stall, fear, shame, shock, all clawing at me. But the image of that man sliding a note under my door flashed in my mind. The footage of Dorian posing me like an object, the emails, the transactions, and suddenly the fear of doing nothing was worse than the fear of doing something. Okay, I whispered, call. Kendra grabbed her phone and dialed the non-emergency line. She explained there had been a serious crime, that I needed immediate help. When the operator asked for details, Kendra's voice grew tight. It involves drugging and exploitation and a spouse. The operator went quiet for a beat, then said they were sending officers within the hour. When Kendra hung up, she pulled me into a hug. I didn't realize I'd been crying until her shirt dampened beneath my cheek. Selena, she whispered, whatever they say, whatever questions they ask, tell the truth. All of it. This ends today. But before the police arrived, before I could gather the files or steady my breathing, my phone buzzed again. This time, not from Dorian, not from an unknown number, but from an email alert. Someone had just tried to access my cloud storage account, the one holding the camera footage. Someone knew exactly what I had, and they were trying to erase it before the police arrived. My blood iced over as I stared at the notification on my screen. Alert. Suspicious login attempt detected on your cloud account. Time, location, device, unknown. Someone was trying to get into the one place I had stored everything, the basement footage, the pills, the proof. Selena, Kendra whispered, leaning over my shoulder. Is that? Yes, my throat tightened. Someone's trying to delete the evidence. It could have been Dorian. It could have been one of those men in the videos. It could have been the same person who showed up at my door. Whoever it was, they were desperate. Desperate enough to try hacking into the cloud minutes after I left the house. I immediately enabled two-factor authentication, changed the password, then dumped everything into 3 separate backup folders, USB drive, encrypted email, and a separate cloud account I created on the spot. My hands trembled, but I moved fast. Fear was fuel now. Kendra watched me anxiously. Do you think he noticed the cameras? I don't think he knew, I murmured, but he definitely knows I'm gone, and he knows something's wrong. Before we could say more, a soft knock rattled the front door. Not loud, not aggressive, but firm. I froze. Kendra grabbed my arm instinctively. That'll be the police. She walked to the door cautiously and peered through the peephole. 2 officers, she confirmed with relief, a woman and a man. I exhaled shakily as she let them in. The female officer stepped forward first. I'm Detective Naomi Vargas. This is Officer Mills. We were told you needed immediate assistance. Her voice was steady, calm, grounding. Everything I desperately needed. I nodded, but my words came out thin. He's been drugging me for months and recording things. Hosting men in our house while I was unconscious. Detective Vargas's expression didn't flicker with disbelief. It hardened. Let's sit down, she said gently. Tell me everything. For the next 20 minutes, I told them the story from the beginning, starting with the strange vitamins, the memory lapses, the bruises, the basement, the cameras, the men, the files, the notes slid under my door. They didn't interrupt. They took notes. Officer Mills asked clarifying questions in a calm, almost quiet voice. But it was Detective Vargas's reaction that gave me strength. Her jaw clenched, her brows drew tight, her eyes sharpened with anger, not at me, but for me. "Selena," she said when I finished, "what you've described is not only believable, it's consistent with multiple methods used by offenders who weaponize trust and access. You did the right thing by recording everything." Kendra squeezed my hand. Detective Vargas continued, "We need to secure that footage. Do you have the files accessible now?" "Yes," I said, sliding the USB drive from my bag. "All of it is here," and backed up. As she reached for it, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down, and my stomach dropped. A new email notification. Download complete. Someone had accessed one of my backup folders. Not the main one of the mirrors. My hand shook violently. Detective Vargas immediately noticed. "What happened?" "They got one of the backups," I whispered. "Someone has the footage." Her eyes sharpened. "Whoever accessed that backup now has incentive to keep you quiet." The room spun. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a threat. And as the police prepared to take action, my phone buzzed one last time, this time with a message from Dorian himself containing a single chilling sentence. My phone vibrated again, buzzing against the coffee table like it was trembling for me. I didn't want to look. I already knew the message came from Dorian, but the second I glanced at the screen, every part of my body went cold. A text from my husband. Just one sentence. "Come home. We need to talk before things get worse." Worse. The word punched me in the chest. Detective Vargas leaned closer. "Selena, what did he say?" I handed her the phone without speaking. My fingers felt numb, my throat tight as she read the message aloud. Officer Mills frowned, jotting something down. "It's coercive," Vargas said immediately. "He's trying to lure you back before we intervene." "I'm not going back there," I whispered, my voice shaking. "No," Vargas agreed firmly. "You're not." She stepped aside and called dispatch, her voice turning sharp and authoritative. "I need a team sent to the Pike residence. Possible destruction of evidence, high-risk suspect." Hearing Dorian referred to as a suspect made something crack inside me. He wasn't a husband anymore, not even an enemy. He was a criminal, a predator, someone who had been hurting me systematically, strategically, intimately. While Vargas coordinated with the incoming unit, Officer Mills sat down across from me. "Has Dorian ever shown signs of aggression?" he asked carefully. I swallowed. "Not physically, not outwardly, but he's calculated. Everything he does feels intentional." Mills nodded. "Sometimes the most dangerous people aren't loud, they're patient." It struck me how true that was. Dorian's calm demeanor had always felt comforting. Now it felt weaponized. Suddenly my phone lit up again. A second message from Dorian appeared. "Don't involve anyone else. This is between us." My stomach twisted. Another message followed immediately. "Selena, you don't understand what you're doing." That one scared me more than the others. It didn't sound angry. It sounded desperate. Detective Vargas returned, saw my pale face, and quietly took the phone again. She read the new messages, jaw tightening. "He's losing control. That makes him unpredictable." She looked at me directly. "You are not to respond, not a single word. Understood?" I nodded quickly. But inside, I could feel the terror rising thick and suffocating, because part of me realized something horrible. Dorian wasn't texting to get me back. He was texting because he already knew he was caught. "What if he's destroying everything right now?" I whispered. Vargas shook her head. "We have a team en route, and the backups you made are enough to build a case even if he wipes every device in that house." Kendra sat next to me, rubbing my back gently. "Selena, you've already done the hardest part. You got out." I wanted to believe her. But then my phone buzzed again, this time not a text, but a video call request from Dorian. My heart stopped. Kendra's eyes widened. Officer Mills stood up instantly. Detective Vargas moved closer. "Don't answer," she said firmly. But the phone screen flashed with his name again and again, vibrating violently, like he was pounding on a digital door. And when the call finally stopped, a new message appeared. one that made Detective Vargas swear under her breath and grab her radio because Dorian wasn't alone in that house anymore. The video call stopped as abruptly as it began. My phone went silent for a breath, just long enough for me to exhale before a new notification popped up, a photo sent directly from Dorian. Detective Vargas snatched my phone before I could even tap it, but I saw enough in the preview to make my stomach turn to ice. The picture wasn't of him. It wasn't of me. It was of another man inside my house. Vargas opened it, eyes narrowing with a mix of fury and calculation. The photo showed a man standing in my living room, one of the same men I'd seen in the basement recordings. He was looking directly into the camera, his expression cold and deliberate, as though he knew Dorian was sending the image to me. The message beneath it said, "You're making this difficult." My breath hitched. My hands went numb. Detective Vargas didn't hesitate. She lifted her radio so fast it startled me. "Dispatch, update, suspect has associates inside the home. We need immediate backup at the Pike residence. Repeat, multiple individuals may be present. High threat level." Even Officer Mills's calm expression cracked slightly. Kendra grabbed my hand. "Selena, that man was in your house. Right now." "I know," I whispered, trembling. "I know." But a cold realization washed through me as I stared at the image. He wasn't searching. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't destroying evidence. He was waiting. "Detective," I said shakily, "that photo was staged." Vargas turned toward me sharply. "Explain." He wasn't caught off guard. He was posing, looking directly at the camera. Vargas processed that quickly. "He's sending a message. He wants you to know he has help. They're not cleaning up. They're intimidating you." I swallowed hard. "Does that mean they think I'll come back?" "They're hoping," she said. "Or at the very least, they're trying to scare you into silence before we intervene." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Another text came in, this time just 5 words. "Come home, or else." Detective Vargas cursed under her breath. "He's escalating." Kendra looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Or else what? What does he think he can do now?" I felt a cold wave wash over me. "He has nothing left to lose." Vargas nodded grimly, "Which makes him far more dangerous. But we're handling it." She motioned for Officer Mills. "Secure the evidence. I'm taking Selena to the station myself. Kendra, you can follow us in your own car." My voice was barely a whisper. "Do you think he'll run?" "I think," Vargas said quietly, "that he's already realized running won't save him. Men like Dorian don't run." Her eyes hardened. "They try to control the narrative." My chest tightened. Because Dorian wasn't trying to escape, he was trying to outmaneuver me. Even now, even cornered, before we could leave, yet another message pinged onto my phone. Vargas checked it first. This time, it wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand. It was a video clip, just 3 seconds long. The clip showed the basement stairs, dimly lit, silent, empty. Then, at the end of the clip, the camera jerked violently, as if someone grabbed it. Detective Vargas's face drained of color. "This means they found the hidden camera," she said softly. My lungs seized. And if they had found the camera, then someone in that basement had just discovered I'd been recording everything all along. Detective Vargas's expression hardened into something I can only describe as controlled fury. She immediately pocketed my phone like it was evidence made of glass. "They found the basement camera," she repeated quietly. "That means they know you were alert. They know you've seen what's happening." My skin prickled with cold fear. Everything in me tightened at once. "So," I swallowed, "they know I'm not unconscious anymore." Vargas nodded once. "And that you're working with us now, which means we need to move." She motioned to Officer Mills, who was already gathering the USB drive and my printed notes. "Kendra," Vargas said, "you're following directly behind my vehicle. No detours, no stops." Kendra nodded, pale but resolute. Then Vargas turned to me, her voice low, steady, almost gentle. "Selena, from this moment on, you're under police protection. Understand?" I nodded, even though my body felt like it wasn't attached to my mind anymore. Before we left, She scanned the windows and doors as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. I slipped on my shoes with trembling hands while Kendra grabbed my jacket from the sofa. "Detective," Officer Mills called from the hallway. "You'll want to see this." We followed him to the front door. On the ground outside, barely visible through the small gap at the bottom, lay another folded piece of paper, just like the first one the stranger had delivered at my own house. Kendra gasped. "How did—" "We've been inside this whole time." My pulse hammered as Vargas picked it up wearing gloves. She unfolded it slowly, a short message, just 6 words. "They know she's not sedated anymore." The handwriting wasn't Dorian's. It wasn't the man from the first note either. A third person, a third witness, or participant, or threat. I didn't know which, and every possibility made my head spin. Vargas folded the note back up. "This isn't intimidation. This is signaling." She looked at me, deadly serious. "Someone inside that group is escalating faster than Dorian." I felt my knees weaken. "What does that mean?" "It means," Vargas said, "someone else involved in this operation is acting independently, and they are watching you more closely than we thought." A cold wave rolled down my spine. "So it's not just Dorian," Kendra whispered. "There are others trying to get to her first." Vargas nodded. "Yes." I steadied myself against the wall. "Detective, does this mean I'm in danger right now?" Vargas looked me square in the eyes. "Selena, you are in danger until Dorian and every man involved is identified and in custody. But you are not alone in this anymore, and we're moving now." We hurried toward the door. Mills went first, checking the perimeter. Vargas followed, guiding me with a protective hand on my back. Kendra trailed right behind us. But the moment we stepped outside, all 3 officers tensed at the exact same time. A black SUV was parked at the end of the street, engine running, windows tinted so dark they looked painted over. Officer Mills reached for his gun. Detective vehicle at the corner. No plates. Vargas grabbed my arm. "Selena, get behind me, now." My breath hitched. The SUV suddenly lurched forward, jerking toward us. Kendra screamed. Mills shouted. Vargas pushed me back toward the house. And just as the SUV accelerated, its passenger window rolled down, revealing a face I recognized instantly, someone I'd only seen in Dorian's secret files. The SUV screeched forward, tires shrieking against the asphalt. Detective Vargas shoved me backward so fast I stumbled into Kendra, nearly falling onto the porch. "Get inside, now!" Vargas yelled. Officer Mills drew his weapon, positioning himself between us and the vehicle. The SUV slowed only slightly as the passenger window finished rolling down. And then I saw him, a face I recognized immediately, even though I'd only seen it in the darkest corners of Dorian's files. Client 014, the man who'd paid for repeat sessions, the one who'd downloaded footage of me more than anyone else. His eyes locked onto mine with a calm, eerie familiarity, like he'd been studying me for months. "Selena, go!" Vargas shouted. Kendra yanked me backward, dragging me through the doorway as Mills advanced toward the SUV, yelling commands. But Client 014 didn't speed away. He didn't flee. He simply leaned out the window slightly, his voice audible over the idling engine. "You shouldn't have left," he called out, cold, soft, almost disappointed. My heart stopped. Detective Vargas unholstered her gun. "Step out of the vehicle with your hands up." But the man smiled, a chilling, practiced smile, and tapped the side of the car door like he was signaling someone inside, someone we couldn't see. Then the SUV accelerated, swerving violently around Officer Mills. He fired 2 warning shots, but the vehicle disappeared around the corner before they could even attempt pursuit. The street fell silent again. My knees buckled. Kendra caught me just before I hit the floor. Detective Vargas stormed back inside, slamming the door behind her. "We need to move now. That confirms organized involvement beyond your husband." I couldn't breathe. He knew my name," I whispered. Vargas knelt beside me. Her voice softened, but her eyes burned with determination. "Selena, they're not just clients. They're part of a network, and you gathering evidence disrupted it." "I didn't mean—" My voice cracked. "This is not your fault," she said, gripping my shoulders. You survived. You documented it. That's why they're panicking. Officer Mills was already on the radio, calling in a bolo on the SUV, describing the suspect, requesting immediate backup, more patrol cars, units to Dorian's house, everything. Kendra held my hand so tightly it hurt, but I needed the pressure to anchor myself. I can't go anywhere alone, I whispered, not with him out there. You won't, Vargas said. You're coming with me to the station right now. We'll file for an emergency protective order and initiate charges. We have enough evidence to arrest Dorian today. He'll fight it, I said, voice trembling. He can fight God if he wants, Vargas snapped. Evidence wins, and you have it. She helped me stand. My legs were shaking so badly I thought they might give out again. As we stepped outside toward her car, I glanced back down the street one last time, half expecting the SUV to reappear. But it was gone, and yet the fear it left behind wasn't. Because as I reached Vargas's vehicle, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words, "We're not done." My blood turned to ice, but nothing could prepare me for what happened next. The moment the police raided Dorian's house and discovered the one piece of evidence that changed everything. Detective Vargas drove faster than I thought a police vehicle legally could. Her jaw was tight, her focus razor sharp, one hand on the wheel and the other on her radio as she coordinated the raid on Dorian's house. Kendra followed behind us in her car, refusing to leave me alone even for a moment. We reached the station first. Officers swarmed the parking lot, quickly guiding me inside, while Vargas briefed the supervisor. Everything felt surreal. The fluorescent lights, the buzz of radios, the clacking of keyboards. My world had been shrunk down to this moment, this building, these people who suddenly felt like the only barrier between me and unimaginable danger. Within minutes, the raid team updated Vargas. "We're breaching the Pike residence now." I stood frozen, listening to the radio chatter as the officers entered what used to be my home. My heart hammered so loudly I could barely hear the words. Front door clear. Living room clear. Basement stairs moving in. Multiple devices located. Suspect not on site. Not on site. Dorian was gone. I gripped the edge of the desk so hard my fingers throbbed. Gone meant he'd fled. Gone meant he wasn't running from the police. He was running after me. Vargas touched my shoulder gently. "Selena, breathe. We'll find him." But then another voice crackled over the radio. "Detective Vargas, this is Unit 3. We found something. You need to come down here." The tone was off tight, almost shaken. Vargas's eyes narrowed. "What did you find?" A beat of silence. Then a room, a hidden room, behind the basement wall. The air left my lungs. "What?" I whispered. Vargas didn't waste time. She grabbed her keys. "Stay here with Officer Mills. Do not leave this room." But I grabbed her wrist before she could go. "Detective, what does that mean? A hidden room?" Her expression was grim. "It means your husband was hiding something bigger than what you saw in those cameras." And then she left. Kendra slid into the chair beside me moments later, breathless from rushing inside. "Where is she going?" "They found a hidden room," I said, voice cracking, "in the basement." Color drained from Kendra's face. She squeezed my hand, but neither of us spoke after that. The silence felt heavy, suffocating. 10 minutes crawled by like an eternity. Then Vargas returned. Her face told me everything before she even opened her mouth. Shock, anger, disbelief, sorrow, all tangled together. "Selena," she sat across from me, leaning in. "What we found changes the entire case." My stomach twisted. "What was in the room?" She took a deep breath. "It wasn't just equipment," she said quietly. "It wasn't just storage or files." She slid a photograph across the table. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then it clicked. It was a padded room, soundproofed, with restraints. And on the small metal table, a label tray of capsules identical to the ones Dorian gave me every night. But the label wasn't from any pharmacy. It read, "Formula B, Memory Suppression Trial." My blood ran ice cold. What trial?" I whispered. Vargas's voice was gentle but firm. "Selena, your husband wasn't just drugging you for exploitation. He was experimenting, tracking doses. adjusting formulas, my vision blurred. He was testing on you, and the final folder they found in that hidden room contained one last horrifying file, one with a date that hadn't happened yet, and my name on it. Detective Vargas slid the last folder from the hidden room across the desk toward me. My hand shook as I reached for it, the dread gathering in my throat like a stone. The label on the folder was simple printed, clean and chilling. Progression plan, subject S, Ward, not wife, not Selena, subject. Inside were documents arranged with terrifying order, dosage notes, test results, behavior logs, a chart tracking my speech patterns, sleep cycles, and memory lapses. And at the very back, lined up neatly like a future he intended to create, were his next planned steps. The date listed was this coming Friday, just 2 days away. Under it, typed in cold precision, were the words, transition to full control phase. My stomach twisted so violently I had to grip the table. Vargas placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Selena, this man wasn't just opportunistically drugging you. He had a long-term plan. A structured one. I was a project to him, I whispered. A project he intended to escalate, she murmured. The officers raiding my house continued sending in updates. More footage recovered, more devices, a second hidden camera set up, binders filled with client transactions. But all I could see was the timeline in front of me, a roadmap Dorian had built for controlling my mind, my body, my autonomy. Kendra wrapped her arms around me. Selena, you survived it. You got out in time. That sentence broke me and held me together all at once, because yes, I had escaped, but not because Dorian failed, because I woke up, because I questioned him, because instinct finally overpowered trust. Detective Vargas took over from there. She walked me through filing an emergency protective order, documented every device and backup drive, and introduced me to Dr. Marissa Quill, a trauma specialist the department often referred survivors to. Dr. Quill didn't treat me like a case. She treated me like a person whose life had been shattered and reshaped without her consent, and for the first time in months, I felt understood. The next weeks were a blur of interviews, statements, legal procedures, and sleepless nights. Dorian was arrested 3 days later at a motel near the state border, the same SUV from earlier parked outside his room. 3 other men connected to his client list were taken in for questioning. More arrests followed. The moment I heard he was in custody, something inside me unclenched. But the healing didn't begin right away, not really. Trauma doesn't vanish when the monster is caught. It fades slowly, gently, with time and safety and people who refuse to let you fall apart alone, like Kendra, like Detective Vargas, like Dr. Quill. And eventually, unexpectedly, like Damian Cross, the guidance counselor at my new school, who treated me with a softness I didn't know I still deserved. He never rushed me, never crossed boundaries, just stayed steady, patient, warm, a reminder that love doesn't have to hurt, and trust doesn't have to be a weapon. It's been nearly 2 years now. I live in Charlotte, in a quiet apartment with locks I chose and security cameras I control. I teach again. I laugh again. I sleep, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. But I'm healing. I survived something designed to break me entirely. And now I tell my story for one reason, to warn, to empower, and to remind anyone who needs it. You are not crazy, you are not alone, and you can escape. Dorian took 7 months from me. He took my safety. He took my memories. But he didn't take my strength. He didn't take my future, and he didn't take my voice, because here I am, still standing, alive, healing, reclaimed. This is my story, and it ends with freedom. Did you like the story? Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep creating more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. There's a lot more waiting for you on my channel. Tales by Aunt Emery. Don't forget to subscribe.